All right. Peace, everybody. I hope that you are doing well. My name is Brenda Williams, and I'm the founder of Culture Shifters Unite. And I'm joined here with the amazing Melissa Keenan, who is the founder and publisher, Hope Publishing, that has produced the Modern Day High Priestess. And for those of you who are not familiar with Modern Day High Priestess, it is an anthology of 22 women spanning the globe. So it's been fun, of course, trying to traverse time zones to have our connection calls and our writing time and our sacred writing time to get this body of work into the world. And I don't say this lightly; it is a body of work. Melissa is an eight-time best-selling author, and Modern Day High Priestess has too joined the ranks as a best-selling book on Amazon. So if you have not gotten your copy, the link is here for you to join us for a harmonic convergence happening here in Detroit. And I would be remiss if I also didn't mention Teen Hype, who is our phenomenal event space to which we are using, which is a youth theater activation. What they do with young people from top to bottom, from everything from script writing to the acting to the lights and the tech, are all student led and student run. And how powerful is it to know that your words matter, that your hands and your care, your talent matter? And that is exactly what Teen Hype is doing under the direction of Ambra, or AKA Miss Red. So I had to name that. But myself, Karina Jackson, Tierra Boyd, and Janine Spencer Gilbert are four of the Detroit authors, and we'll be joined by Lauren Dickerson, Trish Mickens, and Jennifer Seifert. And Melissa will be serving as our high priestess of ceremonies.
Title.
Like, oh my God, like she's not an MC, she's a high priestess of ceremonies. So, our high priestess of ceremonies will be the conductress throughout the evening. And we hope that you join us because stories need listeners and they need witnesses. And Melissa and I were just sharing a bit of our own stories that are showing up in this anthology. But these women, and I don't want to say fear less, but they have conquered the fear anyway and said yes to penning these stories. But I believe in real time, as each of us convene to name our chapter and begin the writing process, I believe there was something sacred that happened in the formation of the stories, but something that goes even deeper when we tell the story. So without further ado, Melissa, welcome.
Thank you. I love all the collaborations I get to do with you, Brenda.
Well, I absolutely love them too. And so I want to really center us in this. You know, when we hear the word modern day high priestess, what does that mean? What does that mean in practice to you?
Oh, it's so big. It really is a vast umbrella term, I feel like, because how it shows up in each individual is informed by our ancestry, our culture, our capacity for inner listening. Like it is so different for each person. I have seen women really cultivating spiritual gifts to be able to heal. I've seen women, taking this just straight to the ground, like Janine, who's, working clothing drives and food banks every day. Like, and so what it actually, then what do we distill it into? Like, what is the common thread? And I think that it's this element of, recognizing that you're here for a purpose and that there's medicine, like you carry medicine, and how we be with that is so varied and beautiful. But it's so interesting too, because I think with every single one of us it comes with persecution and has been fought. We have had to go through initiations, whether they were completely alone or in a large cultural or group setting. We've had to go through these like challenges to be able to step in and say, yes, this is who I am and this is the work I'm going to do. I'd love to hear what you feel like a modern day high priestess is, Berhenda.
Ooh, thank you for that. And thank you for your share because I do think it's a broad umbrella. So I
Yeah.
think for me, initially I sort of thought of it only sort of in an archetypical kind of way, sort of ancient. It kind of took me back to maybe my classes that I took on like Greek and Roman mythology, and so I thought it kind of only lived, in that space.
Yeah.
But the more that I got into it, and when I reached out to you to even throw my own hat in the ring, Spirit said, "Put your hat in the ring. Reach out to Melissa, ask her to be part of it." And I'm like, "But I'm not a high priest." Like I didn't see myself as a high priestess, but whenever I had an intuitive reading, the high priestess would always, like always show up.
Wow.
Right? And so if she's always showing up, what is the medicine of the high priestess? And so what I took it to mean was um those of us who stand at the threshold. I'm not a mother, but I'm not exactly elder either. I'm somewhere like in the middle. And I think that, of course, a high priestess doesn't have any age restriction, at all. But I think, like you said, it's the initiatory process. It's those of us that hold the high watch in our community. It's those of us who are willing to have the hard conversations
Mhm.
and also extend deeper levels of compassion because we've been through it.
Mhm.
And there's a beautiful album. I'd love for those of us who are listening, Melissa, check this album out. It's by Natalie Cole, and it's called Ask a Woman Who Knows.
Ooh.
I was like, "Ooh." And so to have an album, Ask a Woman Who Knows, like just even that title, right? And it's a great album. You have to go through processes. And so we know that, ultimately she did pass relatively young, but she had her own struggle with addiction, very public struggles with addiction. And she was the daughter of Nat King Cole, so having like this very public persona, right? So you're healing and living out loud in front of the public. I can't even imagine what that must have been like to have everyone to like live in a fishbowl. But that was part of her assignment. So I believe
Right.
that as high priestesses, we live in the public, not necessarily intentionally like, oh, pay attention, look at me. But I do believe that our stories are not just for us. And as I shared in my chapter about losing my grandmother, a fibroid tumor, and losing my job in basically less than 3 months, like it all kind of careened together,
Yeah.
it was a huge wake up call. And literally during the healing process of having that fibroid tumor removed, it's a 6 to 8 week process. Therefore, I had to not figuratively sit still. I had to actually sit still and depend on people.
Yeah. That element too of womb seems to be a common thread that runs through every single chapter. And because it's the roles that we play very literally as mothers or as daughters or as sacred bearers. When I think of womb, I like think of Mother Earth. It's like we get to just rest in her womb and go through all that we go through. And in some ways, like recognizing that I came here for more than to just live in this little box
That's right.
has been like recognizing I also like my heart, my womb is big enough to hold all of the things. And like the more that I have said yes to these inner nudges, the more that has led me to um like a deeper capacity for compassion with all of humanity, and our wombs hold that. Like it's amazing to me. I'm continually in awe. It's like it reminds me, so I have 4 kids, and when I was pregnant with the second one, I was like so nervous because I was like, I already love this one so much. Like, how am I going to possibly have enough love to extend to the second one? And then you do, it grows, and then the third one, and then the fourth one. And it taught me that like love is actually so unconditional. And so my practice has been like, how do I actually bring all into that that love space, and I really identify what is my responsibility and also what is not my responsibility, but truly be in that love space. And yeah, it,
That's so. As you were talking, I said this is really gonna boil Melissa's noodle when she hears this. So you said two things that were really important, and I want to lift this up for our listeners who are on the live, or whether you listen to this in a replay. So two things that you name are essential to compassion. So I was listening to this video. So shout out to Pastor Greg, love him. Celebration Spiritual Center. Get into it. I was listening to a sermon that he had, and he was speaking about. I think it was Luke 6:36, and it was speaking about being merciful. But what ended up happening was merciful was mistranslated. The real translation was supposed to be compassion. And the Hebrew word for compassion has a root in the word womb.
wow.
Uh huh. Mm hmm. Mm hmm.
It's
Mm hmm.
it's be like the womb.
Be like the womb. And so when we think about the womb and gestation and love and all of the things that it takes to hold a life and compassion, so he broke it down this way: com, with passion, right? So with passion, with feeling. So the only way to truly be compassionate toward another person is to feel with them. Well, what could be more compassionate than a mother, someone who carries life in them? And whether you are a mother or not, wherever you are on the spectrum, if you are a birthing person, then you inherently know how sacred carrying the life is, but also what it does to your personhood and what you were naming. Like, you didn't know that you could love deeper, then you go deeper. Then
Mhm.
child two comes, okay, deeper. Then three comes, then four comes, and you go even deeper to now where perhaps you're not putting a limit on how much you can love or the depths of compassion. And I believe that that's part of the next wave of the revolution that we're in now. We can't have revolution without love and compassion, or else it becomes a consumable, all-consuming rage, because there is so much to be outraged about. Of course,
Absolutely.
we're outraged about Gaza and Tigray and Congo, and of course, the tenderness that our Jewish neighbors are carrying, because many feel, and rightly so, that they have a target on their back because of decisions governments are making. When we look at the food system, like Janine works in um, I don't want to call them food deserts because deserts are man made, but places where there's food scarcity, where there's limited resources and income. This is the work that she does on top of being a contributor, right, to this book. Same with Karina. She works in the recovery space, literally helping people recover from addiction. You need compassion because you're not your worst choice. None of us, thank goodness, none of us are our worst choice.
Yep. Thank goodness.
Thank goodness, right? But just for some of us, it might be worn more publicly than others, right?
Yeah.
So you get to see it. And shout out to every woman who contributed to this book, because you're bearing your soul. You're talking about choices. You're talking about things that have impacted you. Melissa, with your own story, I can't even imagine what that does to your psyche, as a woman to miscarry. And I was watching a film, believe it or not, a series, Peaky Blinders, and in it, spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't watched it, one of the main characters was struggling with fertility, and back then, and I'm sure to a certain degree now, they blame the women, but we know no, the science has caught up
Yeah.
that it's not something wrong,
Yeah.
with the woman when we look at, fertility, or the one who is carrying life. There's nothing wrong with you. There's several, of course, factors that go into it. But Melissa, if you could share just a bit about how that impacted you and how you were able to get to the proverbial notebook to write your story.
Yeah, this This actually was my second miscarriage that I had experienced, but it was definitely the most dramatic because it took place in the middle of the Costa Rican rainforest. It was like I had this invitation, this discounted price to go on this business retreat in Costa Rica. And it was like all the things lined up. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is going to be such an expansive experience. And oh my gosh, was it, but definitely not in the way that I expected. It was right before I got on the plane that I was like, I was supposed to start my period wait a minute, hold on, and took the test and then went on this experience. And I think that everything we go through, there's an invitation for like deeper growth. For me, it felt like ancient codes, like this invitation into there's more here. You may not have words for it. It felt like I was supposed to leave the life of that child in the rainforest, like
Mm.
a sacrificial offering.
Mm.
Um, and it's, this was actually only just last year. As a matter of fact, we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of that experience happening. I debated and debated. Do I write this? But I was like, there was nothing else to write. That every time I went to like, I have so many priestess experiences I could draw from. No, this was the thing, because it was pretty recent. But I think it connected me to all of womankind. Like what I experienced when I realized that I was pregnant was, I don't want another child. I have 4 children and I do not want this child. And nothing about this feels like this is what it's supposed to be, like that I'm supposed to have another child at this stage of my life. And that was a whole new experience. I suddenly was dropped into like the reality of what it feels like for women who choose to have abortions, the reality for what it feels like for women who choose never to have children, the reality for what it feels like every choice that we make around our bodies and our womb. And all of these like layers of, I mean, if anybody's ever, paid attention to me from your community from before, I come from a really conservative, very Christian, very, right-winged background, and have taken a full 180. And this was such an initiation for me into like all the layers of judgment I had felt towards women and their choices for all of time, all kind of culminating in this moment when I had this huge release that in the middle of the rainforest. And I feel like the rainforest carries this medicine.
Oh, it does.
My goodness. And it was as soon as I came back from that experience is when all of the things started unlocking around, I need to do more in my business for supporting and centering BIPOC voices and voices from other minorities who've been historically marginalized. I run a publishing company, for Christ's sakes. I can put these people in, share their voices, and people can experience them and in ways that wasn't possible 30 years ago. And I just recently connected the dots, like that was rainforest medicine. The rainforest was like, wake up, wake up. Oh,
Oh, that's huge, Melissa. That's nothing to it's not lightweight and it's not coincidental. And that does lead me to my next question for you. Collective liberation. Melissa, how do you weave collective liberation? Or let me take this back. What does collective liberation mean to you? And from the Costa Rican medicine, how is it showing up in your work and life?
It hit me like, how do we rise if we don't rise together? Like, how can I, flitter around with this, what had felt previously, if I'm being honest, like a flea market of spiritual tools that I get to just go and choose from, and like, how can I live like that and never actually listen to the story of the person who carried that, carried it among so much persecution to get to this point where I now get to just step in and, buy my little bundle of sage at the store or whatever. Like, I I don't see how we can access the love that so many, I mean, I am in communion with so many spiritual women, and they're talking about this love and this capacity for liberation. Like, how can we do that if we are only paying attention to the white experience? Like, it's been really eye-opening. I know that has to be kind of nauseating for some to hear. Like, actually, I loved the part in your chapter where you were like, talking, like, did she just realize what was going on in the country when every day of my life has been survival? And I'm like, guilty, yes. Like,
Mhm.
just the blinders just removed. And,
Yeah. Yeah,
um,
we need to put our game faces on. I'm like, girl, I have my game face on every damn day.
yeah, and yeah, in the face of your oppressor as well. That was such a powerful moment in your chapter. You guys have to go read Berhenda's chapter. It's so beautiful. But okay, so yeah, liberation, like, we need to be in communion with all of the stories. Like, I have just gained over the last year, I've gained so much value from just listening to others' stories. And I think that prior to that point, when I heard stories about race and stuff like that, I heard it from the lens of they're still limiting themselves. And that's so unfair. Like, no, this is their lived experience. And like, people don't access liberation through judgment and criticism. They access liberation through compassion and love and being heard and being held and then being supported in community. So this is the question for me continually.
Mhm.
Um, as I continue to take in new stories, I feel like an infant in the conversation.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, I mean, it's always a good time to start. It's never, you know what I mean? Like, the best time to start might have been yesterday, but you know what? Today looks just as good. So
Yeah.
let's start. And you're so right, because in so many of the spiritual spaces, like, there's just this co-opting of elements and pieces. And shout out to my friend Ojas, love her. Ojas is a South Asian woman, and so she was telling me, just even with the yoga practice, there's so many elements that have been stripped away from it.
Mhm,
It's not a workout. It is
mhm.
a whole way of being. That, and the kundalini, I mean, and the yin, and just all of it, like, and the doshas, like, I can't even remember everything. I wish had done better with note taking, but we were just having tea, just to get, just two girls gabbing over chai. But as she was just breaking this down to me, and even the principle, she taught me about the principle of ahimsa, which was used by Dr. King when he made his pilgrimage to India. He learned about ahimsa, which is the whole movement of nonviolence. He actually got from India, and was able to,
Wow.
yeah, right. So it's not, yoga is not just being on the mat and being able to contort your body, into these well, I mean, that's part of it, but that's not the sum total of
Yeah.
it. But if you don't have practitioners that are indigenous to the practice teaching it, then you only get, bits and pieces. We only get the parts that we like or we feel like service us, and we don't get the totality, I believe, and the authenticity of the practice if
Mhm.
we're only cherry picking what we like.
And I think the other thing that continues to occur to me is many spiritual spaces have learned the value of, like, naming the tradition, honoring the lineage, these elements. And it's a step. Like, I think it's a great step. But what we're missing is being about the community of people who are still alive today who have carried this tradition. and that's something that I think we all really get to ask. It's like very confronting. I am a certified yoga teacher. I did my training, gosh, 13 years ago. And during that time, I had PTSD. It was the best thing I ever could have done for my PTSD. It was amazing. And in my yoga teacher training, we studied a lot of the text and things, but I also found chanting. I found Kundalini mantras, and I found all of this area that really spoke to my capacity to access peace in the face of this PTSD. I couldn't like quiet my mind. I couldn't just sit down and meditate or picture a blank screen or all that stuff, because I was like crazy in my head. And it was the chanting that really supported me through that. And I then have gone on in the Reno community. I'm one of the few people who is really into chanting, and I love these chants, and I know the words and I know the meanings and like all this stuff. And I have been asked to teach chanting in yoga teacher trainings. And this last time that I taught, given all of the things I've been kind of coming in relation to, was like, I taught this class different than I have ever taught this class. And the whole conversation was about lineage and how are we really being with these traditions? Because you can go into a yoga class and you can chant in multiple different languages. There's 3 different languages that are most common that you'll be taught a chant in, and you're often not told even what the language is, or where it comes from, or what it means to the community that actually holds these practices in their spiritual traditions. A lot of the Kundalini mantras come from the Sikh faith, and there are many Sikh people who are not super keen on the fact that the whole world is singing their chants. And so how do we be in relation with that? And it's not really an open invitation. You're not invited to just go practice with
Our
the
closed practices. And I think that's the other, what you're naming too, is not getting butt hurt when someone tells you that a practice is closed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, many African, traditional religions, those are closed practices. And so there are some people that get really upset when they're told that they can't be initiated or they can't practice it, or maybe they Google things. And, it just, and it's so ironic, especially when we think about those traditions. In my community, we would have been lynched, we would have been murdered if we were caught practicing anything other than Christianity. So if they heard a chant, they heard a drum, drums were outlawed because they were used as signals. But in Puerto Rico, they were able to hold on to the tradition, and had it treat more secular so that it wouldn't rouse suspicion.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Yes, because it is a call and response, yes, spiritually, but it was also a method of communication for liberation to get free so we can get off the plantation,
Right.
right? So our traditional religion and way of practicing could have meant certain death. And so synchronization, particularly into the Catholic faith, by using the Loals or the Orisha or some of the other deities that were in African traditional religion, were then synchronized with Catholic saints so that the practice could still stay alive.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
Dr. Henry Louis Gates has an amazing documentary, and that's a whole other. But if people are interested, you can go Black in Latin America, and it talks about a lot of the spiritual practices and ways in which they were able to be preserved. But yes, if it was even an inkling that there was a practice, it could mean certain death.
Right, right. And I love this, where I'm deep in conversation in my work right now with Magdalene and Black Madonna about this exactly. And we're actually having a free gathering coming up a few days before our Detroit gathering. All about those symbols of Black Madonna, because so often that was the case. It was like they were able to preserve the statue, preserve the lineage of worshiping this goddess, but call her Mary, and so that they could continue the traditions. And that, gosh, that's happened in so every continent.
The Virgin of Guadalupe, same thing. The Virgen de Guadalupe was also, if I'm not mistaken, an Aztec deity, but she was synchronized so that the practitioners wouldn't die for practice, facing religious persecution. And it's so interesting that the quote unquote foundation of this country was to escape religious persecution, yet religious persecution still persists.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's having this awareness and holding these stories. Like I think that like cracking my heart open to stories was another big
Mhm.
element, right? Like I spent most of my life reading self-help books. I mean, I couldn't even tell you how many self-help books I've read. And then one day I stopped like looking to people for advice and just started going, wait, I think I have, I love it, this inner wisdom. I have this inner wisdom, but it's activated through people's lived experiences. And that's all that this book is about is we carry healing codes. And so as we're willing to be brave enough to share those insights and those pieces that came through for us in our time of need and our times of triumph, that is medicine to everyone else's journey. And it's a practice that I think that so much of our world has pulled away from, just in the hustle for capitalism and all that. Like we
Woo.
value around just hearing stories.
And I think we're craving it. I mean, we can see it, for those of us that might find ourselves scrolling, you're scrolling because you're looking for connection. You're not bored. That might be what it seems like on the surface, but we are scanning. We are looking for connection. This is the reason why we still love going to concerts. I mean, this is ancient that people gather together in a space, and they actually say that people who go to concerts live longer.
Really?
Really, because there's an imprint, because there's thousands of strangers, people that you don't know, are all converging, and actually your heart start to sync up,
Right.
right? Because you're coming to see this person that beloved by this mass of people. But
Mhm.
deeper than that, you're there because that person speaks to you on a soul level. There's something about, I think most recently Florence and the Machines was here. I can't wait till Sade goes on tour again. That's a person that I don't want to pass. Prince passed before I could see him in person, so I said I'm not going to let this happen again. As soon as
Mhm.
tour dates are announced, I'm going to see Sade. But Alex Isley, there's a play. I'm going to see her in June. Jill Scott. I see Jill Scott every time she comes, Melissa. I don't care where she. I always go see. I always go to see Jill Scott. But why? Because at her heart, at her core, she's a poet. She's a storyteller. She's a griot. She tells us what's happening. She alchemizes. She processes and synthesizes humans' emotions of love and loss and grief and all of the things that all of the webs that we get ourselves into emotionally, she takes and puts a soundtrack to it. And that's a gift.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And they've done scientific studies now too with brain waves about hearing story and receiving story, which can come through music, can come through reading books, can come through listening, or just sharing in space with people. That when you are engaged and taking in someone else's story, like reading a book like this,
Mhm.
your brain waves start to match up and sync with the brain waves of the author. And the longer that you read or the longer that you engage and listen, the more your brain waves start to link up and match. And I think what a beautiful form of intimacy.
Yes. And that's what we need so that I can start to see my lived experience and your lived experience. And so I have compassion toward any, group of people that are facing a form of persecution. So,
Yeah.
how do I deepen my compassion toward the LGBTQI plus? And of course, that's intersectional. It's not, no one's monolithic. No one's monolithic. But how do I deepen my capacity beyond self and beyond my own struggle? And I think, like what you said, it's through storytelling. When you hear someone's story, it contextualizes and it becomes personal. It's not just them over there or in that community. It becomes you.
Exactly. And
This
that's
is
what we
you.
need. That is what we need.
So desperately. We so desperately need it. So, Melissa, oh my goodness, I think every conversation that we have is deeper, but I think this one has definitely gone the deepest, and I absolutely love it. So,
Me too.
man, Detroit now, and Detroit, 1967. My dad calls my oldest sister his rebellion baby, because there was a match that was struck, and it did. Many black cities across the country were just exhausted from racialized oppression, and unfortunately there's many parts of the city that haven't recovered, and there are parts that have, but they've been so gentrified. So when we talk about a city like Detroit honoring local community, specifically centering the BIPOC voices in the room and holding culture, story, and spirituality together, what is your greatest desire and maybe prayer for this specific iteration of the Modern Day High Priestess tour?
Well, when we launched the book, there was this beautiful moment where everyone was naming the spiritual traditions that they carry. And I felt the presence of every single one of those spiritual traditions in the room, because it was spoken, it was done in this way of like, thank you. And I really hope that that is felt in that room. And in addition to that, I hope that every woman walks away seeing themselves a little differently, seeing the value of their story, seeing like, because people always will ask me, like, what makes a powerful story? Like, how do I know if my story is good enough to be a published author? And it's like, it is literally the value that you place on it. If you think your life is shitty, then it is. And if you can go in and find the gems that have come from all of the decisions and all of the things, it is a thing of such value.
Mhm.
And that is literally the difference. And so I really hope that the women who come and get to share in community will walk away feeling like my story matters, and I want to share it, and maybe I need to share it.
Oh, absolutely. I really hope that too. And not just a hope, but that is a declaration, because
Yes.
you're going to be uh, a beautiful individual who will win an opportunity to be in the next anthology, but you have to be present. You have to be present there in order to win. And I want to say that just the process, going through this process of writing it, publishing it, even putting this event together, has been such a healing and eye-opening. Like, it takes you just on a spiritual place that maybe you didn't know you needed to go. It has been shadow work times 1,000. I want to name that clearly too.
Yeah.
I want to share with whomever you might be on the fence about it. Maybe you know someone that is a great storyteller, like, oh girl, you tell great stories, or you need to write a book. If you are that person, and that person is you, or you know that person that just needs to write a book, they can start with a chapter.
Yeah.
I think from the chapter can bloom and grow something even richer and deeper. And here's a publisher, so you can talk to Melissa about publishing your book. I really want us to honor, and as many times as women, we discount our lived experiences. Oh, it wasn't that deep, or oh, I'm not that important. You are invaluable. You are, when you go through something like what Melissa has gone through, what I have gone through, Trish and Lauren and Jennifer and Karina and Tiara and Janine, when you can take your experiences, don't take them for granted. They're here to liberate someone else. So check the link here. You can get your ticket, or 2 or 10. We invite you to come. We also have sponsorship available, but I call it patronage because we're constellating. This isn't just, okay, this is a transactional, and then I get visibility. No, what is happening is you're becoming part of the story. You are literally part of the threads that are holding this experience together, and we don't take it lightly. So I want to thank you, Melissa, for being here. I want to thank Angela Bushalato. I want to thank Brianna Williams. I want to thank Sophia Chu. I want to thank Jasmine Akajobi, who have sewn into. I want to thank Amanda Luan, all of our sponsors who have said yes to helping bring this experience to the city of Detroit. And again, thank you to Teen Hype. So, Melissa, are there any parting words that you have?
I just cannot wait. And you talked to me about the waters around Detroit, and since that time, water has been like speaking, 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 speaking. I can't wait to go and just be among these sisters in community.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty. I know it's going to be a powerful night, and I can't wait to share this space with you and see you and give you a hug in person. And to everyone that has made this possible, a debt of gratitude. Honest to goodness, we are so grateful to you, and because of your love and support, we're able to make this happen. So, Melissa, have a beautiful rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. And we'll see you soon.
See you soon. All right, and bye for now.